And it's showtime. Hello, it is April 4th, 2025. Welcome. It's Friday. It's the and it's working. It's the WP Launchify office hours. I had my setup finally operational today. We got a nice crowd backed up here. I was just sending out my notifications, so we're ready to go live. Today is a topic brought on by my good friend and somebody who works with me here occasionally, Anne. Because today we discovered why the minute launch system is very useful. It discovered in advance a bug that is in the Cadence theme that was just released that caused a very unusual set of outputs on her site. And so this morning before the show started, that's why I'm a minute or two late, I went through debugging it. And it occurred to me that this would be a fantastic topic. So I shifted gears really fast for today. And we're going to talk about the idea and the art of debugging in WordPress and how to do it using minute launch and so forth, so that you really don't get stuck when really simple things happen. Now, one of the things I want to bring up is that the value of being a participant in the minute launch, especially with the software bundle, is that by sticking with the same set of ingredients to which that you use, I should say, for building recipes, you know that Spence and the crew of thousands of other people are already using the same stuff, and I can see most of the problems in advance. So ironically, this morning, the problem with the Cadence theme did not appear, good morning, Lloyd, did not appear on any other sites. I have not heard from any other clients, and it didn't appear on mine. But Anne maybe just had one or two special things set up on her particular use of these that allowed me to see this. And now I can validate that, in fact, having rolled back the theme to an earlier version, the problem is in the latest version of Cadence. And it's a very minor thing. It was like a Google Fonts thing. But it happened to be severe enough that it broke the checkout. It broke the pages. So let's talk about the concept of debugging, and we're going to definitely do a show and tell today. So in order to do this, sometimes I'm going to put this into minute launch again. Why not? Let's just do a live note-taking session. Sometimes I prepare slides in advance, but what I found is that if I do the slides in advance and then I get really clever, I have to kind of make notes anyway. So I might as well start with just making notes. Let's just put it in a minute launch, add a new page. And we'll call this debugging mastery. Debugging WordPress. Excuse me. Let's do a list, and then I'll break this out, right? So let's just do a regular list. Okay, number one, the first thing that we want to do is to determine, and I'm going to zoom in on this bad boy. Hold on. Let's say determine the nature of the problem. And this means, is this fatal error versus a warning versus a notice? Now, these are very subtle things, and it's kind of based upon the history of coding. Good morning, Bernie. Actually, good afternoon for you. The nature of the error is important, because what is going to happen is that a fatal error, this is the bad boy. This is the one that you really need to worry yourself over, because this will typically stop the site from working. Whereas the warning, just to keep you informed. And this one is sort of, by the way, something useful is coming down the road. And there are other levels of things that could happen, but this is the three primary ones that you need to worry about. Fatal error is really the only one that's critical. The warning and the notice are sort of like, well, something is wrong. You probably should look at it. And then notice is sort of, hey, by the way, PHP 7.4 is really old. Maybe you should think about updating it. Now, how do we get to these problems? Well, there's lots of tools. Let's just put in a new link for tools. Tools we use. Number one is the WP config PHP file allows us to enable debug. Second of all, plugins allow us to enable debug. 3 or 4, whatever, 3. We can use logging tools, i.e., your host or file manager have logs saved from plugins, etc. Next is we can use browser tools. And then finally, we can use third-party services. I also want to look at this. Let's add one more thing in here. Things not about the WordPress code, but your hosting, etc. That's another category of things that go wrong quite frequently, like a 500 error on your server. What is a 500 error, Spence? Okay. And then let's break this out here, because now we're going to go into what do we do about it? Hey, what are we going to do about it? Okay. Number one, triage. Hello, MASH 4077. When I was a kid, side note, let's do a sidebar with Spence. Sidebar with Spence. When I was a kid and I built radio control model airplanes, I had a little workshop in the back of the basement, and it had this little tiny color TV, yes, with a little ching, 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 ching. You had to change the channel manually, had rabbit ears antennas. And at night after the news and stuff, that was some of my best time to be creative down there. They would have reruns, endless reruns of MASH, the TV show, the 4077. And that's where I learned about the word triage, which is when the patients came in from the battlefield, they would try to order them a priority of those that they could save, needed to save first, versus those they had to save later, versus maybe those that aren't going to be savable. And so we have to triage as well in order to use our time efficiently here. And then what do we do about it is, let's do a series of, we'll call this systematic disabling checking decision tree. Okay, let's put this into effect. Number one, with the fatal errors and so forth, I can actually maybe take advantage of Anne's situation here. I hope she doesn't mind. She's not feeling well today. I could reestablish the problem. So what was happening is this checkout page was breaking, and let's see if I can recreate the problem. I hope Anne is resting and not. If you're here, Anne, say hi. But otherwise, I'm going to break your site again on purpose. I'm going to essentially go back and recreate the problem we had from this morning, because it's a good example of something that really went past the norm on a couple levels. So what happened was, we go to Appearance Themes. Actually, we can go to Notifications instead, and let's just update, right? So if we go to Updates, we should be able to update the Cadence theme. She has, I left the hide notices off here just for demonstrative purposes. Okay, so I'm really confused by what I'm seeing now, because I'm quite sure that she does not have the proper theme in place. That would have been a very odd thing for me, because I'm about to talk about it and I'll have to otherwise generate a fake error. But I was quite sure that she had the modern theme and it was broken, 1.2.10, but now somehow it is showing something else. Let's do this. Let's go to Cadence, Cadence theme. I can download this from a couple different places, but let's download this objectively. Let's check. See, this is 1.2.21. Okay, so for some reason the notice isn't showing us wrong. Let's download the latest theme. That's 0.21, because she has 0.10. Okay, and I'm going to have to come back and fix this afterwards. Let's add this theme in and reintroduce the bug. I hope that the team from Cadence is picking up this video. Otherwise, I'll send it along to them to show them about the bug in the latest version. It is possible, by the way, here's something to add to what we're going to talk about. If you have a bug that shows up, one of the first places to go is to, if they have a home page, or if they have a repository page, go over here and go into the support area, right? So if you go to view support forum, you will often see what the problem is. Now, not always, because right now this is not showing the error that I am seeing, at least as far as I can tell. So they just have not found out about it. But I want to also say, if we look and see when the theme or the plugin was updated, okay, this was updated April 4th. It's April 4th. They got a problem. This, by the way, this is another example of, let's talk real for a second. We have Cadence theme. You might be using another theme. I hope not. You have up to 107 plugins in the kit. There's 80,000 other ones. Guess what? Every morning, Spence starts his day by checking to see what's broken. This is a perfect example of the value of what Minute Launch does. Imagine when I'm wearing my yellow vest, I am running through and looking for problems for all of the customers using the kit, so that when you wake up, you don't have to be surprised by, why the hell is my checkout page broken? Turns out that Ben or Hannah or somebody on the team, well-intentioned, updated their code, but didn't catch a use case that causes an error. This happens to me all of the time. Multiply that times 107 plugins and a theme with extrapolation of the possibilities. This could be 106 times 106, and it comes up with tens of thousands of possible problems. The only way that you're going to get a head start on this is through something like the Minute Launch, where I'm sitting here watching this stuff while it happens in real time to prevent it happening to you. Okay. So we installed the new theme. Let's see. I just want to double check that we got the proper 21 version installed, which is 1.221. Let's see if we have rebroken the site. Never thought I would say that. Let's try to break it, baby. Okay, so I'm going to go to checkout. I'm just shortcutting it here. And wouldn't you know, let's clear the cache. I'm trying to break it. Ugh, just not breaking it, which is also another interesting thing, because I do have a video of this. So I may go back to the video to show you, because the error is relevant. But let me do something else. In order to discover whether you've got errors of any kind, warnings, notices, fatal errors, the first tool that we would use would be something to show the debug information. And in order to do that, right out of the box, you can go into your site, and I'm going to just show Anne's still until I determine whether or not this thing reappears. And what we're going to do is use the file manager. Now, be careful here, but the file manager is one of the plugins that's installed. It's WP File Manager, and it allows us what is basically the same as your hosting server's file manager, or something like an SFTP editor. It allows us to look at the raw files that are underneath the hood. Now, the reason I say be careful is you can break the heck out of this thing. Okay. To make this simpler to see, I'm also going to use the hide notices feature for a moment up here, just to kind of get rid of some of this spray painted graffiti on the top of the site. Okay, so let's wait till that hides. All right, now inside of the file manager, what you want to do is go to the root, the public HTML. Let me know if this is too small. I think it's big enough to see, but it's public HTML. And then what you're going to look for is a file. There's two files that we're going to talk about. One is the error log, which will typically show up if you've got logging enabled. And the second is going to be the WP config file. Let's start with the error log. If you are careful and don't break stuff, you can right click and you can use the editor tools, edit file, and you can choose any of these three: text area, ace editor. They're all good. They just have different stylistic options. If you want, you can change the look and the feel and the color, but we don't need anything fancy here. Let me drag this over and open it up a bit. You can grab the handle. Now this is an order. So if I go to the very, very, very bottom, this is where we're going to get the really, I mean, this is geeky. It's geeky. You guys can handle it. Let's see the dates. Notice the date. It says April 4th, 2025, 1456. Higher up, it's earlier, 1358. So we know the newest errors are at the end of the list. Kind of makes sense. Let's see if we can find the word fatal error or something like error. And I can see it right here where it says, it doesn't use the word fatal error, but it does say thrown in, and then it gives you some information. If you could see this, it's really, it's not well highlighted, but see my mouse is almost like 3/4 of the way down. Public HTML, WP content, themes, ink, components, styles, component PHP. This is telling me the problem, the error is in the cadence theme. And then it's going on to say things like now. No, by the way, this explains why it's working versus before. Because now it's saying PHP warning. Attempt to read property, post content on null, blah, blah, blah. Not working. Before, notice what it says here in the middle. I'm right around this point in the screen. Let me zoom that really in. Bam, bam, bam. PHP fatal error. So if I scroll back here, PHP fatal error. This was what broke the site before. Uncaught type error, array push, blah, blah, blah. And it was in the same place, the cadence ink components style. Now, what I suspect is happening is I think that this is actually going to throw the error again. I think it was just the cache is still not cleared. So if I played with this enough and I actually cleared the browser cache, I think it's going to probably break again. Sneak up on us. Let's see if we can get it to do it. So I'm going to go to the checkout. If I can't do it, I'm going to show you the video because I'm not going to waste all morning just trying to make an error show up again. But it was a useful example for us. Okay, so it's not cooperating to show itself again. So let me do this. I'm going to go to this Loom video real quick that I made for Anne of me demonstrating my fix. And I'm not going to play this, but I want to just show you the screen and what it looked like at the time. So at some point, and I'm talking and talking and talking. Hi, Anne. Let me show you one of the errors. This kind of shows right here. I'll turn off the CC, what the screen looked like. There we go. This is really not a great picture. I don't know if you could see this, but the screen just was totally destroyed, mucked up. And in doing so, it just made it impossible to use it. It was clearly wrong. And it said the same thing once I turned on debugging, what you're seeing here, which was in the log, that there was something wrong with the theme. All right. So the next step, once I identified that there was an error, was I wanted to turn on the tool that would allow me to continually see the fixes. Because if I know there's an error and it's showing up in the log, then I need to turn on the debugging tool. To do that, there's at least two ways. The easiest way, be careful kids, is to go to the file called wp-config.php. Do the same thing, edit the file. You can use the ACE editor or whichever one you want in the WP file manager. And similar to what we just did, we're going to scroll down and we really have to be careful here. Do not go off the ranch doing anything other than what I show you. What we want to do is scroll down to the definitions, the declarations here. And there are three of them that we need to change to true. If you don't have these in there, you can put them in manually. And I'm going to put these in the comments section so that we have this inside of the YouTube video. The first one is WP_debug. And then the formatting of this with the comma, everything has to be exact. We're going to change this to true. And then the next is the display. We're going to do true. That's going to show it live on the screen versus just doing it inside of this log, which we also turn on. That's what's creating error logs. So this is what allows us to debug live, see what's happening, and continually update ourselves as well as the log as to our status. Now, what this will also do, it'll turn on some warnings if there are any. Let's refresh the page and see if those show up now at the top. And they do. So actually, instead of a warning, we have the third. We have a notice. This is a, hey, by the way, This is important, but not really urgent. And it's talking about something that the function inline style was called incorrectly. Now, here's what's interesting. This is very geeky, but it doesn't give me really any specific plugin or theme that's causing it. This is instead coming from the core of WordPress. So something is not happy with something going on in one of the plugins, but it's not giving me any more or enough information to figure out what it is. So in this case, if you get a notice and you can fix it, fix it. If it comes up with something like this, you can try to figure it out. Like, I'm thinking maybe it's because we're using inline style tags, but it's not going to break the site. So you can ignore it. The only time you're going to see this is when you have the debug tool turned on. Now, in the past situation that I cannot recreate here, there was also a fatal warning that showed up at the bottom. And that is how I knew where to start looking for problems. Okay. What's the another way besides getting all scary into this thing that we can turn on debugging? Well, first of all, let's back up the truck and turn these to false, which is the default state that it should be in. Because otherwise, if you're using debugging, everybody will see that. They'll come to your site. So when you're doing it, obviously they'll see it too, but like everybody will see what you're debugging, and that's not necessarily what you want. It's kind of like X-ray vision for what's under the hood. Instead, we've got tools, and I'm not 100% sure, but I believe I've included one in LaunchKit. Let's just see. If not, I know which one we're going to go to. Let's go to LaunchKit and see if we can find the plugin. I also have, by the way, and I've been making good progress at minutelaunch.com. We have all of the ingredients available, right? So let me zoom back to normal here. If we go to ingredients, this is going to be helpful maybe in the future more than it is now. Debug, and I don't think I have it in there. So let's go back over here and let's look at the list of plugins and see if I can find it there. If I don't have it in here, I'm going to add it in because this is certainly a tool that would be easier than for some people using File Manager. Okay, so let's just log in, and Anne also needs to update to the latest version of LaunchKit, I see. Because the new version has the login. She's on 2.10. We're on 2.13. Good time to update. I can't tell you why all that is going on. So let's test meta 2 at test.com. Let's see if I can get in this way. If not, I'll just do this manually. Okay, so I think it's not showing up in here. So let's instead go manual. Sorry, I had to go through that whole process with you guys. I apologize. Let's go into the plugin installer, the normal one. And actually, you know, I'll leave it on Anne's site, and then I'm going to go back to like the demo site so I can mess around with stuff. But this is okay to install. So let's look for add new plugin. And there are several of these that you can use, but what we want to search for is the term debug. And some of them just give a log, and some of them will do what I just showed you. I'm going to pick the one from recollection, and I'll put it in the kit, debug. That's going to make this just as easy as turning on a plugin, which usually is easier. So we've got this here, debug log manager. This is the one that I had used before, the debug log config tool. This is the one I'm going to add in. But you'll notice there's lots of choices here, right? And query monitor is a really good tool for advanced people. Actually, this is at WP debugging. It had a very similar picture. I got fooled by. So there's no shortage of tools, but let's turn this on so that I can show you what it is. It just makes it much easier to access the things that you need instead of having to edit the config file. And I'm not sure we're going to use all of the tools here, but this is enough to get you the basics, because this will come up It's almost impossible for you to get through WordPress without having something come up like this. And the point of today is to let you know that it's okay to open up the hood of your car, carefully unscrew the oil cap, maybe add some radiator fluid, but don't unscrew the hot radiator cap. Do it through the reservoir, stuff like that. Making it clear that you are okay to get under the hood of certain things, just understanding a little bit more about what you're doing and why. Little slow for installing the plugin, but I think we got it. Okay, so it's already active. So WP debugging, let's go to the settings screen. There isn't really a lot to set from what I remember using this last time. You literally, this is a Spence kind of plugin, high five to the developer. You literally just turn on, choices, set it to true, turn on. Oh, actually, this is good. Set it to false. Default is true, and set disable fatal error handler. What this does is there is a safety net in WordPress, thankfully, these days, that recognized a lot of site owners weren't technical. And when a fatal error would happen, their whole world would come crashing down and they couldn't log in even to the WordPress website to fix stuff. So there's a fatal error handling script or code that allows the owner of the site to get a message that says, check your email for a magic link, because what it does is it takes the fatal error itself and it puts it into a box that allows the administrator to get in even if the error exists, because the error is prevented from displaying for the administrator in terms of breaking the site. So in layman's terms, it's like your skeleton key to get in because the locks are broken on the door. So set disable handler to true. I guess that could be fine. Now, when you do this, it's essentially the same as many of the things that we just did, right? It essentially just does this remotely from a dashboard instead of having to open up the file manager. And if we refresh the page, we should still see the notices, which we do, which is terrific. Still haven't been able to reintroduce the error, but this is a great plugin to have. Now, all you need to do is turn that off. And that should be enough that I believe you can leave this plugin installed, but otherwise use it as a utility and then get rid of it. Refresh the page, this should be gone. Okay. So of all of the choices, I'm going to suggest that using the plugin, this is your favorite choice. Let's highlight this one. Let's highlight with how to strike through. I'm gonna do it with like some nice yellow. Okay. So I think that's the key choice, right? We talked about the WP config file, the plugins, the logging tools. Now let's talk about browser tools. Sometimes things go bad and you need to see where specifically it's located. For this, we want to use the inspectors that are available inside Chrome inspector, Safari inspector. And then there's I think there's one other one. There was Firefox, but I think they might be using the same engine, etc. They're all basically the same at this point, so it doesn't make much difference. You right click, and then you want to use the term inspect. You cannot see what is happening on my screen because the overlay doesn't work, but you right click and do inspect. You could also go inside of here, which again, why is this not showing? I do not understand. It is sharing none of the overlays. So you have to go and I wonder if there's a way that I can get this to show. I don't think it's going to happen. I'm going to do this instead. How to enable Chrome inspector. Let's see if I can just show you a shot from somebody else. What a drag. All the easiest stuff is always so hard for me. I'm gonna just show you this screen here. Maybe this will be helpful. Um, no, I'm looking for something to show you what it's like if you right click and turn on the inspector, but you're gonna have to just trust me on this because nobody is showing the actual triggering of it. Sorry, kids. Not going to happen on this vacation. So let's just assume for the sake of argument, if you right click and you could see me, you're going to get to the inspector. And when you do, it's going to look like this. This should show, and it does. Now, the inspector has various tabs. We've talked about these, and I hope this isn't too small. We've talked about these in other office hours. Sometimes we use this for inspecting with this. What is the formal name for this? I call it the pointer, but it's the selector. This allows us to know lots of details about the elements on the page. And for CSS, it's invaluable to use this to choose, like, we want to select this and see what the CSS is and change the CSS. We want to go to the console, the next thing over. And this is going to give us some information. In this case, we've got 3 errors here, which is interesting, but that could be just non-consequential to our bigger problem. So what I'll do is open the console and then I will refresh the page and see whether the errors appear again. And they do not, which gives me confidence there's no problem. When you're looking at the console, what we're looking for predominantly will be errors. The warnings, not so important. They're kind of like the same warnings in PHP. You know, it's important, but it's not going to break the site. Info is kind of like notices, same as messages. These are just different layers of information, but the one that matters is really fatal errors or the red errors. And if those show up, they're typically going to be JavaScript in nature. Sometimes they might be with something in PHP, but really they tend to be mostly JavaScript. And that's important because JavaScript is really powerful, but it runs in the browser and you can't tell from the server level about JavaScript errors. The errors only show up typically in the browser themselves for the client who's using the site. So if we had an error here, this is going to be useful for helping us diagnose what's the source of the error. I don't have a way to generate an error, unfortunately. So let's see if I refresh the page and do something weird, I can jigger something to come up, but I don't think that's going to happen. No. Okay. So you're going to have to trust me on this one for the moment. Basic idea, though, is the browser tool is mostly the Chrome Inspector, Safari, Firefox. And that tool is something that when you're done, you can just close and get rid of. So this is something that only shows up on your screen, unlike when you turn on the debug log, which will show up on everybody's screen. Important to note. This often would fool people when I was giving CSS instructions because I would go to do something like, let's choose the billing details. And then I would say something like, let's change the color of all the H3s, to red. And everybody would go, amazing, my site is done. And I'd say, no, just your browser is temporarily overriding it. We have to copy this into the CSS of the site for it to actually apply. And similarly, when you're using the services like the console, it's just telling you what's wrong and allowing you to figure out what's wrong. But when somebody else looks at it, or if you refresh the page, everything kind of goes back to what it was. You're not really fixing anything. You're just identifying it. Okay. Third-party services. There's so many things that can go wrong here. Let's talk about something like DNS. Spence, my SSL certificate is not working. Spence, my site is not resolving. Spence, why isn't the domain name that we pointed to the site working? Let's talk about a couple of the situations. First of all, is the site broken? Well, let's use a site like, is it down or is it me? There's lots of these. Down detector, down for everybody, down, 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 down. Let's use, is it down right now? Simply put in the website, like your favorite site, wplaunchify.com, and it is going to check objectively, is it your browser? Because you're living in a place where Comcast has cut you off or your janky host is giving you cached up information. This is going to objectively check and see whether the site is working. And in this case, It's green. That means it's good to go. But look, if I tried to go to manga index, it's down. It's down. Let's see what happens when I go to that site. It's down. Okay, so whether a site exists or not, is it down? Let's see about something similar, which is the site's loading impossibly slow, and I don't know why. Well, there's a great tool called Pingdom. Let's go tools.pingdom.com. There are an infinite number of these. This allows us to put in the website, wplaunchify.com. Test it from a location that is either close or far away from me. Let's try North America, Washington, D.C., because my server's in Dallas, Texas. And I'm going to see how fast it loads or if it loads or what's wrong. I'll also see diagnostic information. This could be very useful for problems like, Spence, the front page takes 865 seconds to load. And it turns out that you've got some cool image you just put in the site that's 800 megabytes big. I also want you to understand something. Spence doesn't live and die by this. This also has to be tried several times, because with caching, the first time is not going to be the same as the second time as the third time. Next, load time, page speed, performance grade. Do not pay attention to anything except for load time. Everything else is a gigantic waste of your energy, other than if you have a specific problem. So, for example, performance grade of a C. Spence, sorry, you didn't get the A. You're not a good guy. Well, really, let's take a look at this nonsense. Fewer HTTP requests. I got an F? Really? Cookie free? What? Compressed components with G's? Really? That wasn't on the quiz. I didn't see that in the still. Add expires header. What? So I got 4 Fs for things that mean nothing. Nothing. Reduce DNS lookups. Well, guess what? The reason that I have so many DNS lookups is because I'm using several components that all have various degrees of things that they have to access, like their JavaScript files. Can't do much about that, but it gave me a D. The other ones I got an A on. So this one is kind of nonsense. But when I look under the hood, I can see the important kind of things, such as, truthfully, I've got 4.9 megabytes of images on the homepage. I got to optimize that. But the reason that I have that is because I've got literally like 30, 40 full-size product images, and I've been too lazy to optimize them because I've been testing, which is going to be the better checkout experience. And I just don't care because the page still loads in 1.51 seconds. But the point I'm making here is that besides telling you what is loading and how big it is and what's doing this and whatever, it actually does give me a lot of useful information. I can see that the page loads pretty damn fast in terms of time, because that 1.5 seconds, like right around here, is where things are already loaded. And all this other stuff is just what we call lazy loading, right? You can see the page is already up at this point. It's green, but the rest of the stuff is just kind of taking its time filling in. And when you go to the site, I mean, this is why it's nonsense. Loads pretty decent, right? You go to the site and maybe, yes, there may be a second or something if it's the first time going to it, but it otherwise usually kicks in like boom. Nobody has complained yet, but infinitely important information here. Okay, so using a tool like this, and there's also a similar tool like that is made by Google Page Inspector, but I like tools.pingdom. It's pretty objective, and just don't take anything important except for the load time. If you have anything under 3 seconds, you're fine. Anything above 3 seconds, you need to optimize. Okay, let's look at another one. Let's do IP checker or Whois tools. Instant IP address is important because this allows you to validate that you've got things directly pointed to the proper server. When you host with us with Rocket, the IP address begins with 104. If you host with Cloudways, it's something else. So let's look at schoolwp.com, which is hosted on Rocket, and we should see the IP address coming up with a 104. This is the wrong tool. Sorry. Let's do check my IP. It's DNS checker, but I want to show you. You can let's do DNS checker instead. DNSchecker.com, I think. No, .org. DNSchecker.org is the tool we're going to use. And let's put in schoolwp.com. And you can barely see this, but it's the 104 is the IP address. That's the appropriate address for anybody who's hosted on Rocket through what we're offering here. So that validates for me that any problems with resolving the name or whatever are not necessarily because it's pointed to the wrong server. It is pointed to the proper server. Then I have to go farther. I have to use tools that might give me further information about what's happening. Now, within the WordPress ecosystem itself, there are other similar tools as this that you can use. But if we go back to the WP config, there is something that happens. Let's do that. And I'm going to go back to Ann's site for that simply because it was convenient. File manager, remember, we go to the root. And if we look at the WP config, there's also something in there that can sometimes bite you, which is there may be a directive, maybe because we imported your site or you came from another server. There is possibly a directive here that is related to the domain. So this right here is an option where you can bypass the domain. When you get the site as a placeholder, it usually has some kind of weird abc1234.wpdns.site. That's a placeholder for Rocket for, in case you ever want to have a non-domain site or you're testing. But see, if you have these very specific overrides that are WordPress directives, that will allow you to point it specifically to a name when the site loads. If this is not correct, if you still have the WP DNS address or you have your old URL or something else in here, that could be the reason why when your site loads, it's not properly showing the domain name. That's another very common and popular problem that can be identified from this. If you don't want to remove the table prefix. You need to leave WP. That's important for the database. But the define site URL or site home are essentially overriding. Thank you, Ann. They're overriding this setting here. Settings, general. And you'll notice these will be grayed out. This is normally allowed to be set from the dashboard of WordPress. When you go here, WordPress address, site address, notice they're grayed out. I can't change them here anymore because that directive is overriding this. It's taking over that capacity. So if you find yourself in this situation, if you were to either turn off or remove those declarations or statements inside of the config file, you will be able to modify it here, or you could just use them for your benefit and just hard code it in. Okay. Now, while I'm here, I'm going to show you something. This goes into the don't tell anybody this. If you use this, you're going to break the hell out of your site. I guarantee it. So for this, I'm going to leave Ann's site alone. I'm going to go to my demo office hours site. And it's not that I don't trust myself. I just thank you, Ann, for letting us use your site. It's very nice of you. And I'm going to close a couple of these things down. In the demo site, if I am in the admin dashboard and I want to do any of those types of settings, general settings, reading, I want to go and change the default email for WooCommerce. Okay. I have to find the place to change that. Notice, by the way, in my demo site, see how I can change this default address here. If I change this to my domain name, when somebody is pointed to the site, it will show the site with the domain name in the window. But I could also optionally have the website remain proper, but I could just show something else here. Like if I wanted to be a different URL that's displayed when somebody goes to the site, or there's a little note here, you can have your homepage different, right? That's not our problem today. But the idea is that we're able to adjust those things here because it's not been written out. But here's the part that's like super secret. Please Great power, great responsibility. There's a what do you call this? They call it like I don't what somebody help me out. What's it called when you have like global override? It's like the nuclear option. Okay. At the end of the WP admin URL bar, that is not going to help because it's not zooming in. At the end of the admin bar, instead of it being WP admin / options - general, just be options PHP. One last options.php. One last warning. This is going to break your site if you do not treat it with the utmost respect. Hold on 1 second. Okay. So what I have turned on here is direct access into the database of all the administrative settings. Do not use this if you are not prepared to act like Tom Cruise in Mission Impossible hanging from the ceiling with kid gloves on. Do not do it if you're sweating or if you're going to drop your knife and trigger the alarm, because you will break your site and I will not be able to help you. Anne is the expert. By the way, Anne's got an official title because she is brilliant, but she spends most of her days working on debugging things that she discovered. That's the way I'm going to say it. But only the pioneers discover problems. So Anne, high five to you. I love you for that. You are a pioneer. The debugging and the rolling out is the benefit of what I'm trying to share with you here. This allows me to save database change directly. What would I do here? Typically, this is how I'm going to, for example, fix something like the administrative email is locked in and I cannot change it. That is nonsense. So for example, there's a plugin that I've also got in here, but if I went to users profile to see myself as the admin, WordPress by default will not let me change that without sending me an email. But the problem is this is a new demo site. It's not set up to send emails. What a pain in the ass. I just want to change this. Why is it stopping me? Well, politically, there was some discussion years ago that this is to prevent the site owners from having their sites hacked. And I'm like, that's ridiculous. But nobody cares what Spence thinks on this because somebody thought it's a good idea. So it's sort of like the double opt-in when you go to Twilio or the two-factor authentication, whatever. It's every time you want to make a change, it's sending you a text message. Is that really you? Is it really you? Is it really you? Is it really you? Well, why is it stupid? Because you can override that. Let's take help at WP Launchify. And if I was really a hacker, I'm just going to use something that directly hits up the database. Hello, not hard to do. Watch what happens when I search for my name. Oh, there are 4 instances of Spence help at WP Launchify. If Spence needed to change the core admin email, guess how I could do it really quickly? I bet you can't guess. Every one of these instances, I just change it to John at jingleheimer.com. Done. Now, what I do is I just go to the next one or the former one, and I paste, and then I paste, and then I paste. Okay. Now, this is really awesome because this got stuff that is across the WordPress admin config, WooCommerce, learned it, wherever the email was used, it's going to find it. And then what I have to do is I have to scroll down and click Save Changes. And when I do, it immediately saves it to the database. That is amazing. And this little secret trick of going just WP-admin WP-admin / options.php, use it with great responsibility, Spider-Man and women. Okay. I'm not going to save it here because it will break my site. I will have to go back and edit the database another way. Now, there is one other plugin that I'm not going to do here that is very, very powerful. If you ever feel sparky, I'm not going to say you shouldn't do it, but the plugin allows you to go into the database through a tool called SQL. And the reason this is really dangerous is because, oh boy, can you screw things up. But sometimes it's really useful, like Your admin login is screwed up. You can't get into the site. You can't figure out why. Well, either at the host, or sometimes this might be useful if you are in the site. You want to go in and do a MySQL command or change the password or something, which I'll show you how to do right now. So let's pick one of those tools. The one is called My PHP Admin. That's typically the one that has plugins. It's not it's PHP My Admin. Sorry. PHP My Admin. Don't ask me why it's called that. This is a legacy tool that has been turned into a browser tool. I'm sorry, into a WordPress plugin tool. So WP PHP My Admin. If I install this on my demo, this is going to give me from the WordPress side the same power and control that I would have only gotten had I had the hosting account. Spider people, great power, great responsibility. Okay. I think we should be able to get into this directly just by entering the local PHP admin. If not, we'll try the other button. Let's see if this works. And it does. Now there's some kind of token mismatch because we have to set this up. What is to say, we have to make sure that the configuration here is our proper. Let's see what happens if I switch the other button. The token matches. Usually I just have to configure it so that it matches up with the proper things that I've got on my hosting. So I'm not going to do that as much, but let me, if I can fix it here, let's see. Usually it'd be like the username or something, but let's just not worry about that as much as let me just show you the basics here, because this is not the purpose of the whole, morning. When you go in here, this essentially gives you the database, which has the name and credentials. And then once it loads, if you click on it, or if you click on content, it will expand and it will show you the contents of the database, including a bunch of what they call tables that list out all of the data that's being stored. It's probably good that I'm not showing it to you here, because this is a tool that should not be used lightly. And if you never used it before, I would stay away from this. There are more gentle tools, kind of like I showed you, that are plugins that would allow you to adjust the database, but do it from a safer place. This is like right there in the trenches with a shovel. Okay. So this isn't going to load anyway, but that's fine. I'm only trying to show you that there are other tools available for you here. Let's go back to our list and kind of wrap things up. So I'm going to put it here just so we have this list. We're going to do PHP My Admin. We had I forgot what the other debug plugin was called already. Let's get it so we can have it in our list. This was called I think I put it on Ann's site. That's why. Hold on. Well, I'll put it in the show notes for that one. But PHP My Admin, we can go grab this too. Let's just get the plugin URL so you can grab it if you want. Okay. I'll put that link in later. All right, let's talk about the last thing, which is triage and systematic disabling. The way that I ultimately solved Ann's problem is you have to start from the outside in. You need to first look to what the likely problem is based upon what the notice or the warning or the fatal error is showing. And in my case, I was able to see that there was something to do with the theme. So the first thing that I did was quite literally to, let's go to the screen again, was to disable the theme. So the first thing, if you see that there's an error that has something to do with the theme file, is to simply go to Appearance, Themes, and choose a different theme. Now, if you choose the default 2025, it's going to look weird, but you know the 2025 is probably safe, or you can install an alternative like Astra or something that's a comparable theme. That's what I did for Ann. I just installed Astra, I turned it on. But if I activate the other theme and the error goes away, aha, job done. It's something in the theme. We don't have to worry about plugins. We don't have to worry about other server or hosting related issues. Okay. So step one, switch the theme, right? If that's where the error is. check theme. Switch to other theme. Okay, next, check plugins. Plugin or what does that mean? Well, let's say I go back here and I'll go back to the Cadence theme. Let's say that we have figured out that changing the theme does not fix the problem. Then we want to look to something obvious like plugins. And again, this has a lot to do with what the notices might show us. We can either disable individual plugins, or Spence is going to show you a trick. Kids, be very careful with this. You could disable a bulk of plugins manually with File Manager, or you can use a plugin. This is a great use for a plugin. If we did the File Manager, we have to be super duper duper careful not to turn off the File Manager. Kind of obvious, right? Like, wait a second. If I took the plugin folder and I renamed it something, that would be awesome, because all the plugins would be immediately disabled, and then I could just re-enable the ones that work. But the problem is, if I do that, I'm going to be including the plugin that is running this File Manager. So this one doesn't really work well unless you're connected to your server through FTP or through the hosting's File Manager. But I just want you to understand that sometimes just changing the plugins directory and only leaving the one plugin in place is a really quick way to figure out what's up. Not super efficient though. Okay, so a better way is, let's find the plugin. I didn't prepare this, I don't need to. Let's add a new plugin. There is one that lets you disable the plugin selectively. Let's check it out. Disable plugins selectively. I'm not sure if this is going to get the answer I'm looking for, but I think it will. This one lets you do it on individual pages, but there's actually one that is for disabling for debug. These are all these are really useful plugins, by the way, but what these do, here's the one I want to do. This will do it. These are like if you didn't want to load Elementor on a checkout page because Elementor isn't involved. These are ones that allow you to selectively manage those. This is what I'm looking for, which is a tool that's allowing you to disable like plugins or features. Let me make sure there's not another one too. Let's see what this one does. I'm not sure this is the exact plugin that I want to do, but it should be the concept. It's going to give us an interface that allows us for debugging to just turn off stuff. Let's see. And I don't know where the interface is for this one. So let's go to settings. It's under settings menu. Okay, so this, not the one I was looking for. This is absolutely not the plugin we want. Let's delete that. Hold on. I'm going to do a quick Google search. WordPress plugin to disable plugins for debugging. I think that'll get me where I want to go. Maybe it's this one. WP debugging. Nope. This is the same thing like the one I showed you before, but it's not the answer I'm looking for. This one is one of them that might work. Health check plugin. I'm going to pull this out later because I realize I'm being lazy when I don't have this prepared for you. But the plugin that we're looking for, I think, is this health check. Let's see. I feel like you're joining me. Let's give it a try. I don't think this is the plugin. We can give it a try, but the point is, because we're at the end of the hour anyway, there is a plugin. Let's try health check just for the heck of it, that allows you to see the plugins and to disable them without necessarily removing them or doing it through the file manager, right? So let's try this. And this has been often the case in the step 2. When you go down the list, I disable all of the plugins first, then I turn them on one by one and see if the error returns. See, if you are trying to find the problem, you have to get to know problem first. And once you get to know problem, then you can start trying to reintroduce the problem. That's kind of the triage thing. So here, this is not what I really wanted, but let me see if it's got what I need. This is actually good. This is a global version of this, but if you enable troubleshooting mode, this is pretty cool. It actually does do what I needed to do. So notice it took all the plugins and it disabled them. This is actually very good. So this is what I'm going to recommend. Now that they're disabled, okay, and by the way, same thing with the themes. I can switch the theme. Now I could just enable one at a time the plugins until that error reintroduces itself, right? Enable the disabler plugin, ironically. Does that cause the problem? Yes or no? Okay, let's enable the health check. Does that cause the problem? Cadence blocks. Does that cause the problem? Okay, so triage means being logical. Health check plugin. Being logical and going from a state of the error is removed to a state of trying to reintroduce the error in a way that would identify which is the problem. Now, if it turns out that the theme and the plugin aren't doing it, next I would go looking for errors on the particular page using the Chrome inspector, which we talked about. If that doesn't work and it's still something else, then you might have hosting problems. You have to check probably with me and I will get it taken care of. Or if you're on your own host, check with your host to see if there's something else going on. It's a mechanical problem. Like I alluded to with the DNS, the IP address, it could be that the server needs to be rebooted, okay? The decision tree is really that simple. Let's just do it graphically, right? What's the problem? Where is it located? Does it go away if you remove parts? Can you replace the broken parts? Now, what does that mean? Well, today, I'm pretty convinced there's still a bug. It might have been a quirk, but there's probably still a bug in that last release of Cadence. I will bet that sometime by lunchtime, there'll be a new release of Cadence theme, maybe even while we're talking. Let's just see what happens. Because what happens is either the host is notified or the author is notified, or in this case, Spence writes a patch. I can almost guarantee that if other people find this, you will see later today that the support forum will have indications of people asking the question. Hasn't happened yet, and that there will be a fix. It's just how it works. All right. So I want to say thanks to everybody for sticking around for this one. This was a little dry, but very important. Hopefully you've taken away some tips and tricks and some confidence that I am always here for you. And I love when you ask me the question before spending your whole morning with something that I could have saved you all that time. One of the primary benefits of working with the Minute Launch are the three things that we deliver. Number one, all of the latest and greatest software updated to the minute, usually to the day, really. So you don't have to buy it and license it and manage it and deal with it. And it's at a fraction of the cost of buying it. So why not? The code in WordPress is not what is being sold. Two, the concierge support from Spence, like this morning with Ann, that $30 unlimited email means if you see or have a problem that is using the same components that thousands of other people are using, I dig right in and I give you an immediate answer because either I know it already or you've triggered me to benefit the community by finding that problem, like on my first cup of coffee. That's the best $30 a month you're ever going to spend. And then the hosting, that's what makes it possible for me to deliver a unified experience where the hosting is no longer going to be the source of your problems. You can see that at wplaunchify.com. You can get any or all of these a la carte from me, but the $97 all in one is an unbeatable package when you also consider that it can be used for the software and the support with an unlimited number of sites. It only includes one hosting, of course, but if you wanted, you can just go the monthly combo, get all three things, plus join the community built in, or you can a la carte it. If you want to a la carte it, you can just click and just get the software bundle, right, for $47 a month, or just get the hosting for $20. So in this particular case, I've put together this package of all of these. The all access pass will not be charged to you actually, because if you get this, you get also included in the Launch Club community. But you can, if you want, also add on some custom help from Spence. If you want me to help you debug a problem outside of the email, happy to just jump in there. This has allowed me a model that you as implementers can use for your clients as well. You literally are just mirroring mine, and we end up with a client paying $194 to you, 97 of which goes to me, but really 77 to me, 117 to you. You get 20 of my dollars. So you end up with 117 a month. The client gets everything they need. They have a team of everything from the hosting company support to me to you. They're very happy and they stay forever. But for you, you don't have to keep paying every client. You can just use the one kit for yourself, and happy to support you unlimited. So this is a good example of how I myself have streamlined by enforcing this sort of, yes, a little dictatorial rule, use the stuff in the kit, because that way I can head off at the pass a lot of these problems. And Bernie, you're most welcome. Bernie is a good example. He's been asking great questions. I can demonstrate for everybody some really powerful stuff and then memorialize it into the improvements, the updates, the cool new features. No problem. Speaking of which, I normally wouldn't do this, but for those who want to stick around or see this video, I'm going to show you one little surprise I've got under my hood here. One of the things that Bernie and Ann were both asking about, which I'm going to grab a URL here, was how do I accomplish a really efficient modern version of a like a sales page where you have Ajax add to cart. Like I want to sell stuff, I want to add it to the cart super fast. And I want to just give you guys a quick sneak peek of this, because this is something that I hope to maybe release this weekend when I'm getting creative. So I'm going to actually give you a new link here. Let me show you what this is. I have to go to the page. This is an example of Spencer's concept, along with the other tools that we've been working on, of how it could be super easy to offer any product dynamically without nearly any setup whatsoever. And I believe this is the page. Let's see. Yeah. Okay. So here's the situation I've got. Let's say I want to create a brand new shop for myself or my client, and I do not want to go to all of the trouble to setting up products and all of the infinite number of options. I just want to go. Wouldn't it be cool? This is the early version of this. If Spence had a tool that allowed you to just say, make 3 products that do this, that, and the other thing. So here's an example of an interface where whether you typed a directive or you chose a thing, you could just say, give me 3 subscription variations for a product that's a membership thing, blah, blah, blah. Boom, press one button and it will create those products and their IDs, 62, 63, 64. Now, what if there was a component that could be put on the front end of any page that didn't require you to set up and customize and stylize and this, that, right? So 62, 63, and 64. This is just a short code, like all Spence's other stuff, where I'm going to 62, 63, 64. I'm going to use these products as the example that were just dynamically created. I'm going to have those in the short code as being available to buy immediately. 62, 63, 64. What is Spence doing here? Well, what I'm showing you is I'm able to have a site for myself or my clients that created immediately 3 saleable products that will have very specific, correct, capabilities or design or pricing. What does it cost? But I didn't have to go through all that menu stuff. I just made them. Why? Watch this. Now I've got a panel with the order review and everything that's Ajax enabled, and somebody can, as quickly as I'm showing you here, notice there is no refreshing the page required. There is no speed lag. I am able to throw those products selectively into the cart or into the checkout that fast. And since these products were created literally in under half of a second, imagine if you could set up your own site or your client site by just literally saying, I want 3 products that do this, and their names are this, and here's an icon, and not having to go through the interface, just make them. And then you can offer them for sale by just choosing a cool dynamic layout, or Here's an example of how we can have like a donation type of a thing. I want to buy product number 65 or 64. Okay. So just add that by using the form field or through a URL on a button. I will leave it at that, other than to add a little teaser. Imagine, because we've got the AI support and we've got the other integrations, that your site can basically fill out all of the rest of the fields as well. Like, what if you wanted to have a placeholder that pre-filled all the information about this client into the template? In my mind, the basic idea is we should give you a tool that removes all of the tediousness of the administrative experience and just make it as simple as a Mad Libs game, like when I was a kid. Give me a noun, give me a verb, give me an adjective, and it will just fill in all the information. So a couple things. First of all, in the products themselves, what if we had a simpler interface? What if Spence fixed the product interface so that instead of the infinite array of toggles and save buttons and weird doodads, wouldn't it be cooler if it was more like using just a flat interface like ACF Pro does, right? So let me click and edit this product. Here's what it could look like. Notice there's no weird drop downs anymore. Notice everything is just in plain view, and it can even be, or I may go further, it might organize it with like literally, this is what you use to set the quantity. This is what you use, but really simple interface. So whether I fill this out manually or I use my AI to fill it out, no big deal. I also want to show you this example of the placeholder. This is something that's definitely going to be a big win, because we've done this before, where what it does is allows you to have keywords or key placeholders that are anywhere in your site setup. It could be on the back end, it could be on the front end, so that if you want to replace that with your client's information, all you need is for your client to fill out a simple form, answer some questions, boom, 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 boom. It goes out and replaces those words. Okay. So I believe I have it here. Cadence placeholder. I might call it minute launch placeholder. It's an easy concept. So here's one word. We're going to have multiple fields. There might be 20, 30, 40 fields to fix and set up a site for yourself or client. Anywhere I put the word placeholder here, it is going to replace that with whatever word I save in this field. Okay. So whether myself or the AI does it, if I go here to the pages, let's pick a page that I did yesterday as a demo that has a placeholder in it. So I believe one of these is that placeholder demo. Okay. So if we go to this page, it says Bob Smith. Wouldn't it be cool if with our AI tool or the client filling out a form, it could say something like Bernie Smith? When it's saved automatically, it updates. Now, imagine how cool it would be if the AI tool that we've got that's looking at your private data, your customers' responses, all of the information in the social community, could also use the same concept for updating how many members are there, or what's the best product to buy, or today is Black Friday. Instead of you having to go in and edit a product and editing all of this nonsense through an interface that is wonderful but very, very slow, wouldn't it be cool if you just had one page or one interface that filled out 20, 30, 40 key fields and changed the idea, right? So, Brenda Starr. And this is the future that I see, where we use the key components, once that saves, we use the key components of WordPress, but I refactor them together in a way that is very specific, because we understand which components everybody has and they can all benefit. Because the thing that breaks stuff now is when somebody has 2 or 3 different ingredients, and then all the other metaphors, all the other ideas break, because the plugins have these weird, quirky fighting amongst themselves. I hope you guys have an amazing Friday. I've been making wonderful progress. I'm very excited about the spring and the summer, my physical health, my mental health, everything has been great. I'll talk more about this in another show, but a lot of it has to do with choices that I've made to filtering things out of my life, adding things into my life, staying focused, and also just the idea of time and patience. Thanks everybody for your support and your love. I love all you guys. Look forward to seeing more of you. If you're not joining Minute Launch, join it. That's, by the way, hint, hint, Launch Kit is going away in favor of Minute Launch Kit, because from a branding standpoint, nobody is using Minute Launch but me. Launch Kit seems to be the word du jour, and it's too busy. I will see you guys after the weekend. Ciao.